Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Dharmaya.
Namo Dharmaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Namah.
Namo Namah.
Om.
Om.
Ah.
Om.
So, welcome to the last class of this course. Well done to you all. You've stayed the distance, walked the path, and now we're coming to the final stage. So we have a rich evening for you. But first we're going to start, which is a big part of the evening, is we're going to do a meditation. And then I'll say a bit more about the rest of the evening. So if you want to just make yourself comfortable, take time to set up. There's no rush. And we're just arriving from whatever you've been doing all day or just before you came to class. And just sitting, tuning in to how you're feeling. Thoughts in your head. Do you feel happy, contented, sad, bored, a little irritated? Whatever it is, just be with whatever arises without adding on to it. So we're starting where we're at, taking stock. And now we move to an awareness of your body. The feet on the ground. The seat you're sitting on. Or if you're lying down, feeling the body supported. The grounding, letting gravity take its course. Letting go the strains of the day. Soles of the feet, ankles, front of the feet, heels, calf muscle, back of the lower legs, knees, back of the knees. Thighs, both legs releasing. Moving to the pelvis. Connection between your buttocks, the cushions or chair, pelvic floor, hips, stomach, lower belly, middle belly, upper belly, lower back, middle back, upper back. Move into your rib cage, collarbone, shoulder blades, back of the neck, back of the head, the face, forehead, eye sockets, eyeballs, cheekbones, nostrils, the jaw, whole body, releasing, letting go. Notice any tightness. And just bringing your attention to that area. Noticing maybe it releases. Whole body at peace with itself. The human body at peace with itself is more precious than the rarest gem. Cherish your body. It is yours this time only. The human form is one with difficulty. It is easy to lose. All worldly things are brief, like lightning in the sky. This life you must know as the tiny splash of a raindrop, a thing of beauty that disappears even as it comes into being. Therefore, set your goal. Make use of every day and night to achieve it. So by coming to the class, you've made a commitment. You've set your goal. And in this class, where we're reaching the final part. You've achieved. You've achieved the fact that you actually came and stayed the distance. Well done. So we're going to do a short metta bhavana, developing love and kindness for yourself, for everyone on the course, and then spreading it out. So becoming aware of your breathing body. The breath links us to life. Where do you feel the breath in your body? Stay curious. Notice. And now coming to rest in the heart. Deep heart. Ask the question, where is my deep heart? And see what response you get. And using the phrases, if they help, saying your own name, may I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. Notice what's happening. Thoughts in your head. Feeling. And we're going to move into the next stage. In this stage, you're going to bring to mind people who've been on this course with you. Maybe the people in your group, others you connected with. And we're bringing person or persons to mind from the course. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. Noticing what's happening. Stay curious. There's no end to seeing. And now moving to the final stage. In this stage, you bring to mind all the people on the course, been traveling on this journey with all of us, family, friends, then spreading it out into Dublin, Ireland, the world. wishing love and kindness. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. Beginning to let go of the meditation and just sitting for a couple of moments. And when you're ready, opening your eyes and coming back into the virtual room. So this evening we have a continuation of our journey into the stream of the spiral path We've looked at habit, superficiality, going through the motions. And tonight, Rijimuni, after the break, is going to talk about vagueness. All three fetters, three chains, if broken, send us into the stream irreversibly towards enlightenment. So quite an inspiring idea, something to reflect on continuously. So our course has been about the taste of freedom and looking at the metaphor or simile of the taste of freedom of the ocean. The ocean has one taste, the taste of salt. And the Dharma, the Buddhist teaching, has one taste, the taste of freedom. And in our journey with this course, we've explored that in different ways. And in some ways, your reflections, you might have come to some sort of a conclusion of commitment or things you would like to do next to explore this path. So Rijimuni will also turn towards that after the break. But before we get there, we want to come back into our groups. We're going to go into our groups for 15 minutes. And this is an opportunity to check out with the people that you've been connecting with for the last 6 weeks. Maybe looking at, what taste of freedom, if any, has come up for you over the last 6 weeks. Have you felt inspired to take a next step? And what would that be? Or are you just happy just doing what you're doing? There's no right answer. It's whatever deeply you feel. Also, we've been on this journey with each other, and you might have connected with some people that you'd like to continue being in touch with. And because of the Data Protection Act, we can't share emails or anything. So if you want to do that, during the breaks, put your details in the chat box to whoever you want to keep in touch with. That's fine. So Claire, when you're ready, we'll just move into the final group and for 15 minutes.
So this is the last night, the last talk. And I'm hoping if you can break this third particular fetter by the end of the evening, as Pranyamai said, you're guaranteed irreversibility on the path to enlightenment. So buckle up and strap in, as they say. What I want to talk to you about tonight is the third fetter. The third fetter is the fetter of vagueness, or it's often regarded as doubt and indecision. I think vagueness is a better description. Doubt and indecision is something more pervasive, I think, that comes up more in meditation, but and that's beyond the scope of this course. But vagueness, what is vagueness? In a Buddhist sense, in a Dharmic sense, we're talking about vagueness in relation to your intentions in life. It's not about uncertainty and you not knowing things, because the world is full of things we don't know. It's not about that at all. It's a sense of not, how do I put this? A sense of keeping things unformed in your mind or in your emotions. We kind of do this on a deeper level. Maybe a way to start getting into this vagueness is, do you know any vague people? People whom, when you spend time with them or are trying to get to know them or have particular conversations with them, you don't actually get any sense of them at all. There's something like an unwillingness to engage in the conversation, an unwillingness to commit to the conversation, or they kind of say a lot. this is my experience. I know people like this I work with. They say an awful lot about, I don't know what they say an awful lot about, because I know them for years. I don't know them at all. I don't have any sense. It's like they kind of fill up the space of communication with chatter, but nothing revealing, nothing of any degree of personal stuff sort of comes up, which is fine in a work context. But what I'm trying to get at is this way that we either communicate with others or have experienced communication with others or are with ourselves, that we use as a defense mechanism. This kind of vagueness where we keep people at a distance and we say, oh, look, I'll call you later. With no real sense of truthfulness behind that as to whether you do or not. It's more kind of a mechanism to kind of get them out of the space that you're in because you feel uncomfortable. So it's an unwillingness to say what's going on in your experience, you know, and it can be in relation to big decisions, small decisions. And it's usually because there's something in your life you don't want to engage with. Either something is too difficult in your life or if it's not too difficult, you just don't want to have to engage with it. It might be something that comes up in meditation, something you realize, a habit, a tendency, a distraction in meditation. You think, oh God, I do that a lot, don't I? You know, I'm trying to think of something. I interrupt people a lot, don't I, when they're talking and they're not finished talking, and particularly when they're talking about difficult stuff. I wonder why I do that. It's probably because I feel uncomfortable listening to it. And if I can just jump in with a remedy, it'll make me seem important and compassionate, but it'll also take away the anxiety I feel in listening to it. And in doing so, it'll kind of shut them up too. So that kind of thing I'm talking about. As I say, speaking kind of from a Buddhist term, we're talking about not deciding, and it's particularly poignant on the last night of this course, not deciding clearly and systematically about whether you're going to follow this particular path, whether it's of any use or benefit to you, you know. There's something about vagueness that's hard to spot. So if you're sitting in meditation and you're experiencing, I don't know, jealousy or something else that's unskillful, resentment, anger, ill will or something towards someone, and you can kind of spot them because they come up and they usually have a bit of tension in them. You can look at them, but at least they kind of come to the fore in your experience. It might be very, very unpleasant. They certainly are for me. I can feel tenseness in my chest. Even my breathing can change sometimes if I'm in the fourth stage of the metta bhavana and this difficult person comes up. But at least I can clock it. But with vagueness, you don't necessarily see it. You know, it doesn't come up with such a strong visceral emotional response, because it's a sense of kind of fogginess, uncertainty and unease. So fogginess, uncertainty and unease. Ways in which it can manifest, and I'm glad I'm having this talk on the last night because it is particularly relevant about what you might decide to do when this course is over. And I'll talk towards the tail end of the talk about things that are available at the centre should you decide to engage a bit more. And Claire will share some events and activities and stuff like that are coming on later. And also share her experience of the path as well, which people have found in previous courses is useful. But it's, do you know this kind of sense, I hope you've had it in the last couple of weeks, where you meditate some days and you don't meditate other days. Mary there brought it up before the break. And there's kind of a sense of, does it really matter if I don't meditate 7 days or 5 days? Is it like, to what extent does it have an effect? Sure, I'll just do it when I feel like doing it. You know, it's that type of unclarity in your mind as to whether it's of benefit to you, you know. So vagueness is not thinking, deliberately not thinking methodically about such questions as, well, do I really want to meditate? Have I actually experienced any benefit whatsoever from meditation? You know, what would happen if I meditated more? What effect might it have on me and my relationships, particularly with difficult people, for example, as we've just done the metta bhavana, you know. Instead of asking those kind of deliberate questions, vagueness has no time, has no space for questioning at all. The type of vagueness I'm talking about is where you say to yourselves, I won't bother today, sure, I'll meditate tomorrow, I'm tired now, I'm really busy. Or whatever the excuse is. There's a non-questioning, there's just a sense of impulse to meditate because, it was good, or they told us to do it as part of the homework. But you know what? Yeah, I don't really want to do it. I'll do it later. And there's part of you in that moment that says, I'll do it later, on a deep emotional level, that knows you're not going to do it later. But isn't it great to say that to yourself? Because then you kind of let yourself off the hook, Any of you recognize that state of mind?
Sorry, Reg, maybe there's a question in asking, is it avoiding being honest?
Yes and no. I mean, avoiding being honest, you could say, is just not telling the truth. It's so yes, to that extent, it's about avoiding telling the truth, if that's the definition you choose of honesty. But it's deeper than that. It's kind of more insidious. I mean, at least knowing if you're asked a question, you're by somebody else, or you ask yourself a question, and it requires an honest answer, but you decide not to give it. There is a kind of a thinking process that goes on in that. Vagueness doesn't even have a thinking process. It's kind of of a deeper level. You could say honesty, or rather dishonesty, is an aspect of deceit, but there's kind of a calculatedness associated with that, which comes from thinking and deciding I'm going to tell the truth, or I'm not going to tell the truth. Vagueness is sort of a numbing down and a mindless sort of attitude to those deeper stirrings that you get, that might have led you to come on this course, that might have led you to have a meditation and realize, oh God, I've noticed something about myself. It's kind of a turning away, a tuning out. I don't know if that kind of answers the question. It's not as clear cut. But in any event, what we're trying to do is we're trying to move away from vagueness. We're trying to move to, the opposite, which is clarity of mind. Starting to ask some deliberate questions of ourselves about, is this meditation lark any good? Have I had experiences that would want me to repeat my meditation experience? If the answer to that question was yes, the clarity involves systematic thinking and saying, well, what efforts would I need to put in to kind of establish a meditation practice? What stops me from meditating? Do I go to bed too late? That's why I can't meditate in the morning. So I hardly can get out the door in the morning. Why do I keep prevaricating? Is there something in my experience I don't want to look at? A glimpse of something emotional that came up in a meditation 2 weeks ago. I kind of put that back in the box as quick as possible. So it's kind of more systematic, looking at your experience and saying, if I put effort into this, would it be of value? What stops me? If I believe that that's the case, what stops me from doing that? And then trying to, if you like, clear out the obstacles to allow yourself to kind of get on with it. It's not just meditation, I should say. Don't get me wrong. We are talking about, this is a course about freedom. It's about, what are the obstacles to my freedom? What ways do I hinder myself from progress in my life? I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. So the opposite of vagueness is clarity. Pranyamai mentioned retreats before the break. Being on retreat is not just my experience. I think it's a common experience where people will experience most lucid moments in your mind, where the vagueness kind of dissolves or fades into the background. And that's because you're living more simply, you're doing more meditation, you are chatting on the retreats with the other retreatants. Let's pretend we're on a retreat ourselves. You'd be chatting with each of us as preparing breakfast or whatever we're doing during the weekend. So you are living more simply, you're doing more meditation, you're in communication with others who want to pursue this path. But because your life becomes more simple, your thoughts become more clear, and your emotional life starts to become more clear also, because you're giving it the space to rise to the surface, so to speak. So this vagueness is an unwillingness, you might even say, resistance to distinguish between what is of deeper value and what is kind of superficial in our lives. You might even say it's just a refusal to want to look at anything of significance or depth in our lives and kind of keep ourselves on the surface. I met someone for lunch in Govinda's restaurant during the week around the corner from Easton's. And I got there early and was looking at the magazines. I'm a mad motorbike head, if anyone knows me. So I was looking at all the motorbike magazines, and I just looked up and I saw a sign on the top of the shelf in Easton's, and it said general interest. And I just thought, that's fascinating, isn't it? Because, you can come on these courses and just think, God, this is great. I'm really interested in this. But it can just be a general interest, along with all the other interests you have, and that's all it becomes. The course finishes, and maybe you take up another course in a year's time, but it kind of just stays on the general interest shelf of your Easton's bookshop. So what we're trying to do is notice these resistances to go beyond a sense of general interest and try and find some resolve. As I say, vagueness doesn't show itself like anger or ill will or jealousy, or so it can be kind of hard to kind of pick up. I just find that expression of general interest. Is that all this is? Is this just of general interest, along with the other courses of general interest you've done, motorbike maintenance or flower arranging, or I don't know what people do? Is it just one of those? Is it just another one of those? Asking yourself that question starts to turn it away from vagueness and more towards clarity. It may well be the case that you decide, actually, I only wanted a general interest. I just want to do a little bit of meditation here and there. That'd be nice to calm myself down and have a fairly stressful life. And that's fine, but, and that is fine. That's absolutely fine. At least to that extent, you're moving out of the space of vagueness into clarity, and you're asking the questions. So how do we move out of vagueness? Bhante, in his talk on the Taste of Freedom, which this course is based, says one way to do it is reduce input, to reduce the bombardment of images and news, particularly relevant at the moment with all the, I'm guilty of this, of kind of tuning into Sky News and Daily Mail and all that kind of stuff with the terrible things that are happening in the Ukraine. And I'm not talking about mindfulness. Certainly is about being aware of what's going on in the world, but there is another level of mindfulness that is able to sustain attention and ask yourself the deeper question: do I need to watch this 24 hours a day? What effect is it having on my mind if I'm consuming this 24 hours a day? There's not always the dreadful things that are going on at the moment happening, but trying to reduce our input in a broader sense. Like I said, when we're on retreats, there's very little input. Everything kind of quietens down. What we're trying to do is listen less to Sky News, so to speak, and trying to listen to the voices within, if that makes sense. And trying to engage in more and more of this type of communication that I'm having with you now, and you're listening. I mean, we've mentioned during the course, particularly last week, if people were interested in joining study groups and studying the Dharma, the Buddhist teachings. In a way, that's exactly what we've been doing for the last 6 weeks. You were listening to myself and Pranyamai talking about the Dharma, talking about what the Buddhist taught, and then obviously reflecting on it. And some of you have been asking questions with your hands raised or putting it in the chat. So you've been thinking about what we've been talking about. That is a form of Dharma study. That is a form of getting out of vagueness and actually thinking about, what does this mean in my experience? Does this actually accord with my experience? Is there anything of relevance or poignancy in my life that this guy is saying that it would be good to explore more of, So it's about trying to be in touch with yourself on a deeper level in order to think clearly. There's lots of ways to get out of vagueness and move into clarity. Trying to be clear in your speech, either when you're actually speaking or when you're sending emails for about email communication. Trying to be as clear and precise when you're communicating and saying what you mean, saying really what you mean, not kind of covering it up with kind of jargon or I'm grand, everything's grand, Bhante, who wrote the paper, The Taste of Freedom, has this beautiful expression. It's called trying to find emotional equivalents to our intellectual understandings. I love it because I heard it and I thought, yeah, that's why I followed this path. But it took me years, I think, to actually understand that the things that I say, the actual words that I use and the things that I say are conditioned by how I think. And that is conditioned itself by how I feel. So to the extent to which I can get clearer about how I feel, I am not going to be so vague, because I'm able to be in touch with the kind of deeper stirrings of what's emotionally engaging me to say and do and think the way I do. You know, some of you either have been meditating for some while or are new to meditation, but you might have noticed that there are, for example, particular things that bother you in meditation. We call them hindrances. Certain kind of habitual, repetitive patterns that come up in meditation. They might be repetitive planning, you know, revenge fantasies for someone who, you know, upset you in some way, or it could be just in craving for something, you know, some big nice experience once this course is over, or it could be boredom, or it could be just restlessness, or whatever it is. But there are actual patterns, you know. So having, for example, a regular meditation practice, you start to see these repetitive patterns. They are hindrances, they are thoughts, but they are conditioned by deeper emotional behaviors, deeper emotional stirrings, which we're trying to get access to through meditation, through these Buddhist practices. Another way to move away from vagueness is commitment. Trying to commit to something, to give it a chance to see, does it really work? You know, trying to say, you know, well, I'm going to give this meditation thing a go when the course is over. It's easier when the course is on, because as Liz said, it's a lot easier to do it in a group setting. But when the course is over, what am I going to do? Maybe you'll commit to do, as Liz put up there, tuning into the London Buddhist Centre or Dublin Buddhist Centre websites to the daily meditations. You know, to the extent to which you consciously decide, actually, I think this is worth going. I'm going to commit to it. That is a way of kind of stepping out of vagueness. So just deciding to meditate every day, deciding to go on another course, deciding to tune in every day to the online meditation offerings. That is a way to step out of vagueness, to actually commit to something. Now, I know when you commit, you don't know what you're committing to a lot of the time. And then sometimes your commitment might not be strong enough. So you have to renew that commitment over and over. If that's the case, maybe you might need to commit on a deeper level, and a deeper level or a deeper way to commit is to maybe change your circumstances. Maybe there are conditions in your life that are just not conducive to you creating space enough and still enough and quiet enough to look at yourself in a more deep way. It might mean cutting off from situations, or in my case, it meant kind of cutting off from, you know, certain types of friends. You know, in my 20s, you spent a lot of time in the pub and stuff, and I just realized that beyond the 3 or 4 hours in the evening I'd spend there, I had nothing really in common with these people, and very often any sort of depth of communication that I thought we were having was never spoken again once we all sobered up, so to speak. So it was just easier for me to kind of step out of that situation, to try and provide for conditions for myself that were more conducive to follow this path. You know, I should say that, you know, and this is an important point, that being an order member means honoring your commitment to the Buddhist path, you know, and putting yourself in the strongest possible conditions in which to allow the Dharma to kind of affect me. You know, it means really putting yourself in the best possible conditions to try and strive for enlightenment. I mean, that's what I see being an order member as. And in so doing, and along that path, providing, hopefully through doing these courses and other things, providing the best possible conditions for other people to do so. I mean, that's what being an order member means to me. I remember having a Mitra ceremony back in the days when I got involved. We have this lovely ceremony called a Mitra Ceremony, where it's just a simple ceremony done at the center, which recognizes publicly your commitment to say, oh, I think I'm a Buddhist. I want to practice within this particular community. You know, it's a very powerful, moving experience to witness someone else publicly commit to something like following a Buddhist path. Yeah, it's very, 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 very moving. Probably the most primary way Buddhists move out of vagueness and into clarity is being able to discern what is skillful from what is unskillful. The Buddha divided his thoughts into categories of unskillfulness and skillfulness. The unease that I spoke about, that we feel when we get a sense of, oh, I should meditate, I don't really want to. Or a sense of, this is a good thing to follow, but I don't think I want to do it. Or I know what the right thing to do is, but I don't want to do it today. This unease comes from sort of a conflict on one level in knowing what the right thing is to do, to know what the skillful thing is to do, versus the unskillful thing. It's that tension between knowing what we should do, but don't really want to do it. Do you know that kind of a sense? You know what's good for you, but you don't want to do it. I don't just mean in a spiritual sense. I mean I don't know. I mean in a dietary sense. We know what to eat, but do you always do it? You know, we know exercise is good. Do you always do it? You know, keeping in contact with your friends. Do you always do it, or do you do it as much as you'd like to? You know, so in a way of resolving that conflict, and in a way of kind of reaching down deeper into yourself, stepping out of vagueness means having the clarity to ask questions like, what's holding me back in my life? You know, who's holding me back in my life? You know, where am I making bad quality decisions? How could I bring about improvements in the choices that I make? You know, this is where the taste of freedom lies. This is what this course is about. You know, it's stepping out of vagueness, stepping into clarity, and asking yourself those questions. Are you living the life that you want to live? Are you fulfilled? Are you as fulfilled as you would like to be? You know, and as I say, are you making certain choices in your life that are not helping that? Could you make better choices? You know, I mean, in my life, I'm not so conflicted. I have an awful lot of work to do, but I'm certainly not so conflicted about things as I used to, because I don't do a lot of the things I used to do. I certainly don't go to the pub anymore. You know, I've made decisions that bring more clarity into my life. I do that by looking at the blind spots, sitting in meditation. I notice tendencies and habits and ways of being, and I kind of bring them out, and I talk to my friends about them. I even confess them sometimes and go, do you know what? I have an awful habit of doing this when I'm tired. I get really ratty and irritable, and I snap at people. It's about kind of looking at the blind spots, bringing them out, sharing them with others, feeling that you're in an environment like this community of Buddhists that you feel will trust you, that will not criticize you, that you feel supported by, you know. Resolving these conflicts brings more clarity. But there's something else that's really important. There's a positivity that comes about resolving these bigger conflicts. So when these conflicts aren't so much an issue anymore, there's just this kind of a sense of an overflowing. If you were to fill a glass, if you were to fill this glass with water and just keep pouring, just this kind of just an overflowing of positivity, because you're not so concerned with you and all your unskillful choices and all the conflicts you have that, you know, you should do this and you don't want to do that. You've just made all those decisions. You've kind of cleared all of that clutter away, you know. I should say on a broader sense that this clarity that I'm talking about is not just about making you a nice, happy, healthy individual, as the expression often is. In a Buddhist sense, this clarity brought to the nth degree can get to the bottom of the delusion of selfhood. You know, like your mind is innately clear and can go deeper, a lot deeper than your own selfishness. You know, there's a lovely description I came across today about the quality of mind that is imbibed with clarity. It's a deep, beautiful, stainless consciousness that's radiant. I'll read that again. It's a deep, beautiful, stainless consciousness that's radiant. In fact, the Buddha even said that consciousness below the root delusion of a fixed self is a beautiful, luminous mind. Consciousness below the root delusion of a fixed self is a beautiful, luminous mind. I'm going to go off piece for just a moment and just mention a book I've been reading recently. It's called The Master and His Emissary. It's by a Dr. Ian McGilchrist. He started off as studying literature, I think, in Oxford, and then became in later years a neuroscientist, I think, or a neurosurgeon and a psychiatrist. Anyway, he has this book. It's quite a big book, talking about how the brain has a left and a right hemisphere. Yeah. And that the left side is where we have the clear, logical, linear thinking, which the left-hand hemisphere does really well. And the right-hand side is that kind of bigger perspective. It's where we are more open to the possibility that we don't know everything. We're more open to the bigger perspective. We're more open to the possibility that you or I could gain enlightenment on the spot, so to speak. We're more open to the possibility that our consciousness is more vast than our rational, linear, critical, logical mind, left-hand mind can think. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the left-hand mind. We need that to function and to go about our lives and pay our bills and drive and do all our things. But the problem is that the left-hand brain thinks it's the master, when in reality it's just the emissary. Yeah, this is this is what Dr. Ian McGilchrist is positing, you know. So Buddhist practice in general, including meditation, helps us to not be so dominated by this left brain, left hemispherical thinking, you know. The right-hand brain, and you might even say Buddhist practice in general, you know, believes that our consciousness is evolving, you know. When you meditate on a regular basis, you'll feel different. You'll have a bigger perspective. You'll be more calm. You will be more aware of your thoughts and what's driving them. You'll be clearer in your emotions. You'll be more aware of your motivations, you know. You'll be more able to react more creatively instead of knee-jerk reactions, you know. All these things are an evolution in your consciousness. You know? Even a week of meditating, you know, I'm thinking Mary just said it, 3 minutes. I mean, 3 minutes might be a little bit thin on the ground. Maybe you're only being playful. Maybe 4 would be enough. But even a week of meditating regularly, you will see the difference. And the reason that is because our consciousness is not fixed. You know, there's nothing fixed or static about our consciousness. I led a meditation, you might remember last week, about, or the imagery I evoked was a stream, that our experience is a stream and we're flying above the stream like a bird, you know. We are more like, our consciousness is more like a fluid stream, you know, than this kind of a fixed thing that we call the self. The problem is we keep habitually engaging the left brain, so to speak. We keep flicking TV channels, you know, we keep flicking YouTube websites. We keep narrowing down our consciousness by trying to control our experience with input. And, oh, I have to know exactly what happened in Ukraine today. Oh, I have to know exactly at what time the Dáil are going to propose the petrol is going to be reduced. I just have to know this bit of information, you know. I don't know whether you've noticed, but when you keep consuming information, images, news, all of that kind of stuff, your consciousness becomes narrow, yeah? It becomes tight. And there's something really unsatisfactory about it, you know? Whereas when you meditate, it's the opposite. The consciousness feels broader, you know? I don't know why, but it does. Yeah, it just does, doesn't it? You feel more positive. You kind of have a sense of, I sometimes get a sense, I kind of get a lot of visual images in my meditation. I sometimes get a sense of another me behind me, kind of standing behind that. I'm meditating with sort of a miner's head torch on, and I'm very focused on what's kind of going on. And there's another Riju Muni behind me with a broader beam of a head torch that has a much bigger perspective on my life. And when I finish meditation, things just don't seem to perturb me as much because I have that bigger perspective. So Buddhist practices, and this obviously, you know, this is a Buddhist course. On the other hand, makes your consciousness expand, yeah, because consciousness isn't fixed. You might even say Buddhist practice is about undoing all the unhelpful habits and feeling more flexible, you know, more free, more connected with yourself, with others, with the world, you know, and feeling more joyful, more content, yeah, just more fulfilled and content. I mean, what else would you need? Maybe you've had a glimpse of that in your own meditation, you know. What's really important to know is that your consciousness is limitless, you know, or the Buddha's term, the Buddha, I think used the word, it's boundless, you know, it's infinite. How exciting is that I can evolve almost like a plant growing. I can, with supportive conditions of retreats, of classes like this, of meeting people like yourselves, lots of supportive conditions, of practicing, making skillful choices, of practicing my meditation and seeing where my mind goes, what distracts me. And doing all of these things, I'm nourishing this plant, so to speak. That plant can just grow and grow and grow, and that's boundless. My consciousness is boundless. What a wonderful way to live, rather than the narrow, totally preoccupied with me that I had been spending so many of my years before I came across the Buddhist path. I love this expression, the tyranny of self-preoccupation. I found that really quite a burden. And I'll just conclude by saying that working on your mind is the most important thing you can do in your life. All the running around that I do, all this utilitarian stuff that I do, racing here and racing there and going to work and paying bills and all that kind of stuff. I needed to kind of keep functioning and be alive. But when it comes to my deathbed, so to speak, when it comes to die, none of that's important. It's all just fluff, really. It's just not important, Surely all we're here to do is work on our mind, and working on your mind is where the taste of freedom can be found.